for joining us. If you're just joining us, this is Firecrackers and we're just about to get started. I also have to acknowledge the presence of Akin Orebi, who is joining us live from Lagos, a former INEC commissioner. Good evening and thank you so much for joining us today on Firecrackers.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, all right. I also have with me here in the studio Shola Omolayo, a social commentator. Thank you too for joining us today on Firecrackers.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, all right. So let us begin with this topic we have at hand, which is Ondo election. Ondo people have decided, and they decided on Lucky Aiyedatiwa, who is going to be running the affairs of the state for the next 4 years. I'm sure they have thought this through, and then they have decided that he is the right man for the job, and I'm guessing that is the reason he became their governor. Of course, there are debates on how credible the election is, since there were issues and news about vote buying flying all about. But now that the election is over, let us ask ourselves, what lessons are there to be learned? Because if something has happened, we have to draw lessons from it so that we'll be able to implement it in the future. So let me start with Barrister Wahab Abdullahi. Since this election started on Saturday, there have been issues of vote buying. That was one of the things that kept ringing on and on and on and on. But overall, if you have to look at it, what lesson would you say you took out from this election, be it for the political parties or be it from INEC? What lesson do you think that they would be able to draw from this and they'll be able to implement in the future?
Thank you very much. The major lesson that we've supposed to learn is that we don't take proactive measure when issues happen, and that is why we find ourselves in the position we are today. For instance, when the issue of Boko Haram starts, it's like a joke. It's ferment and to where we are today. The issue of vote buying, when it started then, I remember when it happens in my state in Ikiti, saying Fayoshe was giving out money to people, and they're saying that so much infrastructure. It becomes a joke. But the way it is now, it's becoming something that's already balloon in a way that it has gone beyond doing it behind the curtain. People are now looking at it as something that have to be done. A woman, elderly woman, was talking to a camera and they said that yes, we have voted. The election was so smooth. We have our money, we have collected the money. That's the children were now saying, no, Mama, don't say that, because thought the woman now look at it something that is that to be done. So what we learned from where we are is that we don't take proactive action when things are getting bad. And all the stakeholders, the INEC, all the institutions, Nigerians, all of us have to see it as a duty to ensure that we have to get it right, so that what we have, we can call it a democracy.
All right, thank you so much for that. And what about your Barrister Elvis? What are you taking from this election that you feel that the stakeholders should learn and implement for the future?
Well, I think we need to take the issue of vote buying as a national emergency. It's becoming something else, particularly in the Ondo election. It was so obvious from the reports. It was open and it was brazenly done without any serious challenge and objection from INEC officials, because one of the things you need to look at is vote buying won't be possible without the INEC officials at the polling units, because the vote buyers want to see that you have voted. Voting is supposed to be secret, and so what that means is that if they're able to confirm who you have voted, there's something wrong with the process. So we need to take the issue of vote buying very seriously in order to fix the problem. And I think we need to invest a lot more on voter education. We need to do a lot more work before the election day, rather than just confirming that there's incidents of vote buying before the election, months, years before the election. There should be serious attempt being made to educate people. And then, of course, when people are arrested for vote buying, there should also be sanctions. The law should be enforced. The other act makes it an offense. So why is it that nobody has been sentenced to jail for it? Why, so we need to look at it as a very serious issue. We should explore all options, use the religious organization, use our traditional institutions, use civil society organizations to try to stamp out vote buying. Otherwise, we are going to just be conducting elections as a ritual in the country.
Thank you, Shalom Malai. Since you're just joining us, could you give us your full assessment of how the Ondo State governorship election went first?
They have voted. No. The campaign. They stopped the campaign. The officers took over the election. The election was done, and somebody emerged as a winner. That's what we are saying. But the question is, we talk about the major discussion on the street is about vote buying. The word vote buying. Who is buying vote? Who is selling vote? We are talking about the politician having taken over the sight of the people. And the people that ought to sanitize the mind are nowhere to be found. You are blaming the poor man who don't understand the conduct what is about to engage with. You are saying he is wrong or she's wrong. You pulverize the mind of this person. He has come to understand that there is nothing to negotiate with. That on a day like this, that's an expectation of fun from a group of professionals who have seen a network to make the people. But you will tell me that it is poverty. I say no. No. If you need to call it a poverty at all, it's the poverty of the mind. Nigeria is not as poor as the people of Afghanistan. We are not as poor as some western region of our area, the West African coast. But we are so grown to that psyche that it is because we are poor. No! We have lost the history of who we are. We don't know who we are anymore. Are we really a democratic structure? The answer is no. Which of the political party talking about here? Is it the APC, the PDP, or which one? What is their
differences?
Manifesto you can talk about? We lost it all. You talk about money. This is not money. It's a peanut they are giving to people because they know they are poor from the mind. What should you deal with? Is it not the consumer of this product or the consumer? The politicians. Who in a couple of days, okay, because this one is coming to the ladder on a pure note now because he was riding on another man's horse before. We are going to see his true color in the next couple of months. Yes, he might want to pretend. I'm not expecting anything magical here. He's going to pretend because he's coming to meet a parliament that is not orchestrated by himself. That is why he might want to write softly. Because the people he is coming to meet, yes, he was a deputy at a time with these guys, but he don't know, he has a trouble with some of them at a time. So now, I don't think Ondo people or any of us should expect any big deal now. Not until after the next election of the assembly. We are not the people putting assembly there anymore. Forget that dream. They determine who is coming next. And the powers be. So we are just running this caricature democratic. We are growing, Before, don't blame INEC for God's sake. These politicians are too batsy. They know this game. Okay. They don't need to give this money on the floor. Want to see money. Come to their primary. Come to their primary and see money.
Please forgive. Now it's time for me to call on our chair guest, Akin Rebi, who is joining us live from Lagos. He is a former INEC commissioner for Lagos and Ondo State. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. So when it comes to election, a lot of people usually point fingers at INEC, especially when things go wrong. So is it that it's just people usually looking for someone to cast blame to, or is there more brewing at the surface than that is unknown to citizens? But of course, the one that is on the front is usually bearing the brunt. So he has said that we should not blame INEC. Do you agree with him?
Well, thank you for having me again. Let me say this first of all. Conducting elections by an electoral management body like INEC is a thankless job. Thankless in the sense that if a candidate wins the election, he ascribes the success and his victory to the efforts he has made and also to his popularity among the voters. But if any candidate loses, he throws the blame on the conductor of elections, which is INEC. That maybe INEC was culpable or become fraudulent. Or that's why I said in the first place, it is a thankless job. But if you look closely at the conduct of elections in this country, there are positive aspects to the activities of INEC. There are also areas that still need considerable improvement. The positives, well, I think all of us know, providing the platform, the ground, the level playing ground for all, and I think INEC has done this in this particular election. But in terms of logistics, maybe got late to quite a number of places, the polling units on the day of election, and also possibly some of the machines, the beavers, maybe didn't work up to details as they ought to have. You can begin to now ascribe some failings in the conduct of elections to INEC. But on the overall, the positives and negatives in the conduct of elections have to be borne by virtually every stakeholder. And when I speak of every stakeholder, I mean, again, the electoral management body, INEC, 1, 2, the political actors, the political parties, the candidates, 3, you won't believe it, the voters themselves, and also 4, back to you here, the media and also the civil society organizations. Virtually every particular stakeholder still has a lot by way of improvement, by way of understanding the process of elections, by way of also getting involved in all the necessary aspects of the election so that we can all see the success of the election. But I also want to lend my voice to what the other participants today have said, that perhaps the bulk of the responsibility lies with the people we vote, the people in government, until they begin to let people earn and see the benefits of the end of democracy to the fullest. The voters will continue to rely on them, and they will continue to look every 4 years up to them, almost cap in hand, to receive whatever they offer them. I must also quickly say that the issue of vote buying, sad as it is in Nigeria, is not even new in the bastion of democracy in the United States. We have history of what it used to be, horrible as it was about 100, 200 years ago in the United States, even the United Kingdom. How the parties as well as candidates used to buy elections massively then, until the citizens got together and said, well, look, why are people always dependent on whatever money politicians are offering? Because they're indigent, because they need money, because they're impoverished. So let's face the first task of providing adequate welfare programs for our people, for the citizenry, so that people will not need to rely on whatever stipend that a politician is bringing on the day of election. And so they demolished all this system that encouraged vote buying in their own system. That is where we see to get to. It's one of the lessons I feel we need to do, but to be sure politicians will not lead that charge. We are the ones, the citizens, who need to make sure that we insist on those we vote in, In the first place, let us see the dividends of democracy. And when we speak about the dividends of democracy, we are not saying for your party members or for those who voted for you, but we are saying you should cut across the voting constituency, whether it's at the state level, the federal level, whichever it is. We must insist. Most of us don't know who represents us in our local constituency. Our councillor, a member of the House of Assembly for the state, a member of the House of Reps, our senator. We don't have access to them because you don't make the force. The Constitution gives us the power and the rights to demand. But how much of this do we do? Once we begin to do this and come together and rally in a very concerted manner to say, this man has not done well. We're not going to vote him next time. This is what all of us, let's come around, irrespective of whatever money they have, take their money and then still vote your conscience. We need to get to that position. In that wise, there's little you can blame INEC for. Even if you have an enclosed cubicle, they know what they do. I've experienced it when I was on the field in INEC, in Ondo State, where I think in 2012, I was told there was a gentleman nearby who was giving money to voters. And I went to accost him. Inside his car, I saw bundles of money. I said, may I know you? I saw me and quickly hid the money. But as soon as I said, may I know you? What are you doing here? He was a retired major in there, but an active member of a particular party. So he wanted to bring out his ID card. It was a bundle of money. He brought a bundle of cash. So I learned, and I told the land, you have this man, please go away from here. And immediately he moved away. So people told me, the citizens must also do their own work. Take photographs. Let's keep records. Let's plan them on these days. Elections are even easier with the social media. Once we begin to take responsibility for our destiny in this country, we can be sure that people will continue to take us for a ride. Again, all stakeholders have something to do by way of improving the conduct of the electoral system in this country.
All right, thank you so much for that. But if you were to look at sometimes when people point fingers at INEC, it always has to do with the issue of INEC not being 100% independent. And wherever the chairman is, sometimes they still dance to the tune of the sitting president, or whichever party, the ruling party, so to speak. So if for cases like this, we always see it coming up. Even for this Ondo election, we have groups calling for the removal of the rep for Ondo State because they felt like the person was in a way related to politics and whatnot. So what advice would you give when it comes to people truly accepting INEC as independent if there are sometimes glaring or not so glaring opinion that INEC might not be 100% independent or they've been compromised, so to speak?
Well, I'm glad you used the word opinion. Opinions are not necessarily fixed. So if a particular group of people come together and voice an opinion on maybe the character of a person conducting the election, it will be tried to not be proper for the agency conducting the election to, on the basis of that opinion, now maybe remove that particular commissioner or as administrative secretary, as the case may be. What I think is, if you have strong evidence that you find that could or has already replicated the particular officer you are challenging to be removed, then you can prove that to the world. In that case, it will not be difficult for INEC to take the necessary decision concerning that. But in most cases, because elections bring up a lot of emotions, sentiments, and so people make accusations, comment statements on account of their own sentiments or emotions. Yes, it was said that the resident electoral commissioner for those state, Mrs. Toyin Babaola, although was not a citizen of that state, that she grew up there, her parents are there. The implication is that she's exposed to actually everybody in Ondo State, irrespective of the party, whether it's APC, PDP, SDP, or Labour Party. But if you have certain verifiable facts that she got involved with a particular party, then it is, regardless of whether her parents live there or she grew up there, that person will be implicated. And that was what was being asked for by people. Do you have evidence to show this? When I was there as an commissioner, I had friends in, it was even ACN then, AC and ACN then, because some of them were my colleagues in school. There were some in AC, John Olamafo, who is a prominent politician in PDP in Ilaje, were classmates at IFE. Then Ayo Fadaka, who is a prominent member of the party in PDP, and still a prominent member now, we were also in IFE together. Mrs. Jumoke, Anifo Oshe, the daughter of the late Chief Ajasin, the former governor, who was in AC then, was my senior in secondary school. So where do I fall? The main thing is, let your work speak for you. If a commissioner, if an INEC director, if an electoral officer in INEC, whatever you are, do the right thing. That's all. But if there is sufficient evidence to implicate that I've implicated any one of them, I will also support that such a person should be asked to set aside. But if you don't have that, there's no way in this country that anybody is appointed into INEC today to conduct an election that you will not be related to someone, whether you or someone else, or some of those even watching us out there. But it's the work. That's why I said the public, the voters need to do more work about even those who conduct elections. Make findings. And if you have very strong evidence that somebody is already culpable or is implicated ahead of elections, then such a person should be removed. Let's go to Adamawa last year. The commissioner there tried to also announce the election. He didn't succeed. He could not succeed because the process of the conduct of the election has excluded the influence by any INEC commissioner or any INEC director or any INEC electoral officer. The process of conduct of elections today, since when we were under the watch of Professor Jega, after the reforms were brought in, did not allow any individual or a collective of individuals in INEC to be able to influence the conduct of any election. It's not possible. That was why that Adamawa reg failed last year. You can't write results. You can't tell, because most of the ad hoc staff you use, 90% of those who work on the field, right from the polling units to the wards, from the wards to the local government offices to the state, they are non-INEC staff. And they're in the majority. You know, I'm sure there must be up to 10,000 of them, and how many members of staff of INEC would you have? Less than 1,000. So people should own the electoral process. The media, as I said, the media too, you need to do a lot in, again and again, letting the people know about the process of the election, their duties and responsibilities under the law, under the electoral law, as well as under the constitution. If they know this, I'm sure will take and own and possess the conduct of elections in this country. And it will not be easy for any individual, as has not been easy anyway, to influence maybe with money or any other fraudulent means to the outcome of any election conducted in this country. All of us, it's our faith, it's our country. We have a lot to do in this regard to be able to make sure that elections are free, elections are fair, elections are credible, elections are open, and everyone has access to determine who he wants to vote for.
So much for that. Really, we do appreciate your input. So now I have to ask this question, because whenever elections are conducted and any party, any disgruntled party is not pleased with what happened, they'll always tell them go to court. And then when they get caught, you always see this issue of the evidences that they have is not admissible. And thankfully, we have two lawyers admit us today. So I'm going to be starting with Barrister Elvis. What evidence do these parties need to gather that when they get to court, especially the ones that are not pleased with how elections are conducted, well, we don't know if people will still go to, the opposition parties are still going to go to court for this particular election, but let's assume that they go. What are the evidence they are supposed to present in court that, okay, it is going to convince the judges and whoever is there beyond reasonable doubt that, okay, there was some misconduct and this actually is supposed to stand?
You see, that's where the problem is when it comes to going to court. going to court is not just about stories, it's not just about opinions or impression about the electoral process. You need hard evidence, and the way the law is that it's not enough to even establish the grounds on which you are going to court. For example, you are going to court on the basis that there was practice in the election, on the basis that you won the election and not the other person, or there was an exclusion. You have to prove that whatever it is you are complaining about substantially affected the outcome of the election. And so the evidence is really serious. First, you need to have a copy of all the voting documents, various forms, from the polling units to the collation centers, at what level, local government level, and then at the state level in the case of a governorship election. You need to be able to show the non-compliance in that process. And once you have shown that, then you need to show that if, for example, you are saying you are the one that won the election, you now need to establish that from the votes, if the proper procedures and steps were followed, you will be the one that would have won the election. So what that means is that you need to have, for example, all the requisite information from the polling unit. That's why you're supposed to have agents. People are supposed to have agents that will be looking at what's happening at that level at the polling unit, and then from that polling unit they will be able to see how the votes. If there was any infraction, they're supposed to record them. For example, if there's a provision for you to sign the requisite INEC forms for recording the elections. So if you have any issues, you're supposed to start raising it from that point. You're supposed to start documenting it from that point. So it's really very, very serious. And yes, as much as we I'm one of those that do not agree with a lot of the fundamental decisions that are emanating from the judiciary, but the requisite proof that is required is really very, very challenging, and which is why some of us have advocated that yes, whilst it is true that you should prove, the general body of proof should be on INEC. INEC conducted the election, so they should determine that they comply with all the requisite rules and regulations of the election. They comply with everything, and then whoever is challenging can now come and say, okay, you didn't do this, you didn't do X, Y, Z. But the way it stands now, the body is very high, and it's almost possible to meet.
Okay, all right. Now to Barrister Wahab Abdullahi. We always have this issue too, where people think that the judiciary might be compromised probably because of whichever party is in power at that particular time. And when we are having state election like this, some feel like the judiciary sometimes downs to the tune of whoever is in power. Do you think that might be the reason why a lot of people probably have even lost faith in the judiciary when it comes to election matters?
There are instances where one can say that what comes out of the judiciary as a form of petition, people can sniff that the outcome of this election and the determination by the courts shows that something has gone somewhere. Like my colleague said, there are certain things. It's like once you build a house, there are structures you have to put in place. There must be foundations, there must be having blocks, cement and other things. The moment you have your block and you have cement, you don't have sand, you can't use ordinary cement to raise the building. The same thing happens. The moment there's a lacuna or an opening where the court can lay hands on to determine what you want to come and argue with court, probably that will affect the outcome of what comes out of the court. We are human beings. No matter how, if two competing group or individuals or party go to court, definitely one party will win, one will lose. The ability to now look at the way the court was determined, whether the court was able to adhere strictly to the rules and by coming out to have his decision, that will now let people see it. The way things are, the bench has compromised. If not, you will see the way things are, they try their best in ensuring that they give the good judgments as regarding the matter before. So most times it depends on the party that is challenging the outcome of election. The legal practitioners that are also, there are certain things you need to do. You carry along when you are preparing for the brief. The moment some of it are missing, it definitely affect the outcome of the election. If by chance the bench are being compromised, they'll be able to see this is where the hole is. They'll be able to, you know, lash on that and use this as a weapon to work towards what they predetermine.
Yeah, because sometimes I usually wonder that is it that the legal practitioners don't usually advise their client well, because when they get to court and then you hear that this evidence is not admissible, this one is not admissible, is it that they don't consult well in the beginning, or is it just the clients that is headstrong and be like, okay, I just want to go forth with it? So what do we blame then? Is it the legal practitioner that did not advise well, or the client who refuses to listen?
Well, it's a systemic problem. You know, the issue of admissibility of documents is a matter of law. You know, documents to be admissible, it has to be in a particular form. It's not an emotional thing. So, you know, there are instances where, even as a lawyer, you might have thought that it's possible for documents to be admitted. But you might go there and then issues might be raised as to admissibility of that document. And so, it's, you know, the lawyer must, before going to court, ensure that all the documents that you have are in an admissible form. There are authorities, there are legal principles, there are rules of evidence that you can predict whether or not the document will be admitted in election petition cases. But the challenge you always have in election petition matters is that the bulk of the documents that you need for the election will come from INEC. So INEC, who has determined that Mr. A won the election, they're going to rely on their documents. And so, you know, how are you going to succeed? Because at the end of the day, they will give you the document that, you know, speaks to the outcome that they have, if there was an influence in the process, that they have influenced. And so, you know, it becomes difficult, because the court is not going to be looking at your reports on the news or some stories. So the court is going to be looking at that hard evidence, the documents that were used. Did they, you know, meet up with the standards required by law? Once they don't meet up with the standards required by law, it wouldn't matter what you are thinking. It's possible that the election was rigged, you know, but, you know, the court will be justified, because, you know, don't forget that you don't want the court to be deciding on this of sentiment too. You know, I mean, you want to make sure that, I mean, judges will pretend they don't know what's happening in the country. Yes, there were vote buying, everybody knows that. They're not going to use that to decide the case. Yes, there were reports on Ghana TV that somebody snatched the ballot box and all that. They're not going to decide on that basis. What they're going to decide on is the documents coming from INEC. Is the document, and then perhaps the evidence you can gather on your own side in terms of video recording of what was happening, pictures of what was happening, and all of that. So the issue of proof is really very, very hard. And which is why you see that in most cases, election petition cases are almost like a ritual that you just go and do after the election. And then the day, you know, the outcome will remain the same. You know, it's always very difficult until we change the burden of proof in the electoral matters. It's going to be practically impossible for you to overturn elections. There were, I mean, in the time past, there were a few instances where that was done. But today, it's almost, you know, when was the last time? You know, I said, okay, you saw it in Imo State, and we all know that wasn't, you know, something was also not right, even though the current Imo State government went through that process. So, you know, who should you blame? I don't really know, but the point is that, you know, lawyers would advise their clients, you know, and in line with the evidence that's presented, and of course the clients too. I mean, because sometimes you can tell the client and say, look, this is what you see, and the clients will go ahead, and you say, well, maybe it's 50-50 chances, or you say, you know, there's a likelihood that the client might want to go ahead. But one of the things we have in Nigeria is that, you know, you have a situation where lawyers still advise people to go to court, even when they know they don't have a case. You can't try that in other parts of the world, because the cost, you know, the cost that will be imposed on you by the court, it will be enough to dissuade you from doing that. But here, I mean, the court will be awarding, okay, 1 million cost, 50,000 cost. So anybody can just go file cases on the basis of settlement. So yes, I know that there are some fundamental areas where we can, you know, blame the judiciary, but everything comes down to the issue of proof.
Definitely. It's always fun when one hears waste of judicial time. It's always very funny. Okay, now to Shola Omolayo. When we know that there's issue of vote buying, because the way it seems now, it is probably going to be, even if it prove in court that issue of vote buying took place, and that was probably why the election turned out the way it turned out. So now, who do we blame? The tempter or the temptee? who should we actually blame for these issues of vote buying that we usually see?
The tempter or the temptee?
Yes.
No one wants to be. With this constitution, we're going nowhere. This constitution that we are running now cannot help our democratic structure at all. The best thing for us is to know where we are coming from. When you forget your history, or you know nothing about your history, you can't protect your present even while you are going wrong, and your future is so black. There is no way this INEC, no matter the kind of purification you can put in them, that they will get it right. How? We miss the target from onset. You cannot start up your electoral process by bringing in the presidential election first. Since 1998, when we started our gimmick, that was when we began to lost it unknown to us. Election that I agreed to know starts from local government. That we prepare all the legislature, the governors and the president to begin to work from the grassroots. That is not done anymore. Once you can just elect the president, just the rest is what you are seeing now. You continue to see fire. It's what you are seeing now. You will continue to see forever. People are talking about both by I laugh. How? Come to their primary, go and visit them in their primary election. All these politicians, you are dealing with gangster, man. You are blaming INEC. You are saying lawyer. Waiting lawyer, no be case when I carry come by go talk for court. You say we should take picture, photograph me. Are they not seen it? Who are you meeting in court? Who? Lawyer know the vote. Come on, we have some sentimental space here. I will play the game. But can we start from the grassroots? Can we go back to what we used to be? Why will Awolowo lost the election on his own final day? How? See, if INEC are sincere and if Nigerians are sincere, let this National Assembly be sincere. Let them come together and reform our electoral process. Let us start from the grass. Don't allow a situation where one big man get into office first. Who will you follow at the end of the day? I just told you now that this government is going to mellow. It's going to mellow down a little bit. Why? Because of the present state House of Assembly. That is not his own handmade. So you might see celebrate his due now. Because he wants to work for his second time. After that second time, you will see the true color of this guy. Politicians in this part of the world are now the same since 2007. The first election we had in 1998, 1999, 2000 is to savage our country. Truth must be told. It's not the issue of PDP or APC. They just gave us a template to work with. After that, the Capo himself and the people behind the game felt that this second time must be perfected for peace to reign. The election that we had then is to maintain peace. But Nigerians have not woken up to say, okay, I think we are settled now. Almost 24 years. I think we can begin to reform this. Not until when we are ready. We'll come back here again. Somebody will. You saw language changes. Stomach infrastructure. Who gave us that grammar? You know we like grammar. It's Fayemi now. Yes. Not Fayoshe. It was Fayoshe election. And when Fayemi was venting his anger, he said, "My people." It was on one of the TV stations. He said, "My people." He said, "You know what we have now is stomach infrastructure." You know it's a big grammar. It was the one that formatted that grammar. And since then, it has been a language that we are speaking. Then in this past election, 2 2003, the language is go to court. I mean, now we are going to court. In the next, we will get another grammar very soon. And we enjoy it. What about that apathy that we are seeing? We are not even discussing that. You are just talking about one sector of what happened. The numbers of people that came out to vote now, the number is so reduced compared to what we have there. Don't you see something is wrong? You say court works now. Look at Natasha. Do you know what that woman went through in Kogi State? But at the end of the day, you understand it? See, politicians are, it's just that, let's be honest to ourselves. It is obvious from the game that we are seeing between the PDP, APC, and the governor of that state. If you just don't want to waste his money, you should not just dissolve himself with his lawyer. They can't get anywhere. It's not about big parties are here. He can't get anywhere. Look at the votes now. The people who came out to vote, they already know that now this party go win. Just give us money, let's go buy gas. Gas is expensive now.
Or to cook stew, that is the slogan.
Stew.
Yes, to cook stew.
Soup. So what we have now is so painful that if you check the numbers of registered voters that is expected to come up, with what we are having now, it's even lesser. That means we have lost confidence completely in governance. Not about the electoral process. In governance, we have lost confidence. It's just three people that are just talking about it. In those days, you will even the teachers that ought to be educating and be teaching our students are not even doing well. Will you blame them? Even the teacher that is teaching government, go and ask him, he should give you 10 governors that he knows of that is coming to teach your class government. He doesn't even know it. Because his salary is not well paid. He's even confused. The only places that you say is getting it better educationally now is Lagos. You understand it? So politically, we have to ask ourselves, do we want it like this, or will we rebuild the destruction? As long as we allow it to be, these guys are the chess players. They know how to play the game. We are talking, they have started while we are sleeping. They are working already. You understand it? I was talking to someone by person. I said, politicians are going to start work by March next year. While you are sleeping, they will begin to draw the line. You understand it? Just like Nigeria, we know they start World Cup not until we don't reach 3 months. That's the kind of thing we are. You understand it? But I just pray, because people, if you are not saying they are not going anywhere, they can't do anything, we are making a statement that we are going to pay the price for it, because
okay, all right, thank you so
much.
But sadly, when things get interesting, the time flies. We are quickly running out of time. So now we just have to take a conclusion from you guys. So let us look at, whether you like it or not, we have a new governor in Ondo State, and then for the sake of the people of the state, for the indigenes, for the residents, we do hope that it does well to really favor the state and they have the taste of good behavior during his administration. So very quickly, what advice would you give Governor Lucky Adatiwa of Ondo State right now?
I will advise the young man to think of his name, to think of where he's coming from. I'm sure in the last 6, 7, 8 years, it may not be dreaming that will be the governor of that state. So it's so lucky, like his name. Yes, that Aye has become his own. He should also lash on that name and try his possible best to raise the state above what it is today. We are talking about resources. In spite of the fact that the economy is not good, each state, after the payment of the salary, they still have enough to even do one thing or the other for their state. Let them pick, if it is road you want to face, 1 kilometer every month. By the time you finish the end of your first session for 4 years, you might have concluded about that's about almost 80 and something kilometer, maybe within the city and all of that. So then on education, on health, let them be sincere that even for a down office you make money. In spite of that fact, you still make name for yourself by doing what is right. Okay,
all right. And you, Elvis, what do you have to say?
Well, I think what we need in the country in terms of leadership and as a governor, essentially what I call transformational leadership. You basically has gone beyond this idea of, oh, this person comes and he does a few roads and all that. You need to have a proper, policy agenda that will transform the state, and then you begin to generate funds for the state. This idea of waiting for federal allocation is really not good enough. The state is rich in so many resources, agriculture, oil and gas, and so many other natural resources that the state is blessed with. So he should come up with a policy that can harness those resources for the benefit of his people, rather than playing politics and saving money for another election.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And what about Ishala Omolayo? Very quickly.
We'll still hold on to what we can get from them now. I would say, pick a note from the Senator Natasha, pick a note from Senator Yayi, and also remember the late governor. He made a statement, and fear God. Go and read that line. He said, whatever you keep for yourself, that is if death did not take it away from you. Not only death, EFCC can wake up one day and collect everything from you. Fear God and be fine.
All right, thank you so much for that, and many thanks to Akin Orebi, who joined us live from Lagos, a former INEC Commissioner of Ondo and Lagos State. And sadly, this is where we join the curtains on today's episode of Firecrackers. We thank you so much for staying with us to the very end. And once again, congratulations to the people in those states, and congratulations to Governor Lucky Aiyedatiwa. We wish you a successful 4-year tenure, and if the people are pleased with you, well, perhaps you'll be having another chance. My name is Ireba Misalako. See you same time, same station next week. Do have a wonderful week ahead.